Welcome back, everyone, to the Legends of Sport podcast. I'm your host, Andy Bernstein, and happy to be bringing you episode 5 of our Restarting the Clock series. This episode is called Leading from Experience. Our guest today is a good friend of the podcast, 3-time NBA champion, and currently Executive Vice President and Managing Executive of Basketball at Wasserman, B.J. Armstrong. B.J. had a stellar 4-year career at the University of Iowa, where he still is their all-time leader in assists. He was drafted 18th overall by the Chicago Bulls in 1989 and joined a Bulls team that was at the start of becoming a dynasty. BJ was featured in ESPN's The Last Dance, which we talk about during the podcast. We also discuss his journey to becoming a sports agent, how the pandemic and bubble have changed his day-to-day way of doing his job, and the responsibility of speaking up for social justice. Also, his firsthand experience with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and his personal memories of Kobe and his legacy. I really enjoyed chatting and catching up with BJ. So lots to cover in today's episode. I hope you enjoy it. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. Welcome, 3-time NBA champion, executive VP, and managing executive of basketball for Wasserman, and friend of the Legend of Sport podcast, Mr. BJ Armstrong. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, my friend. How are you?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm pretty good. Hey, we're a part of the same family now. I'm represented by Debbie Spander over down the hall from you at Wasserman. So
yes, you are. Debbie is excellent at what she does. Welcome to the family, and it's a pleasure to be on Legends of Sport, the podcast.
Thanks, BJ. I appreciate it, man. The last time we spoke on my podcast was in May of 2018. So a lot's happened since then, to say the least. I think you told me then that your kids were, I think you said 17, 15, and 2. So are they now 19, 17, and 4?
There, you got it. There you go. You got it. So that's where they're at. So no, all is good. And
you were about to send your oldest off to college. So how did that?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. So he ended up going to the University of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a volunteer down there in Knoxville.
Yeah.
My daughter, she is about to be a senior this year.
Mm-hmm.
And our oldest, who runs our youngest, who runs the entire house here, he's 4, but he's going on about 25. So he's got life all figured out. And,
I hear you.
It's good. He's keeping us all busy.
Hey, better you than me at our age, right? But, so listen, BJ, a lot to talk about, man. I mean, The Last Dance came out, and a lot to talk about there. Since we spoke, we've had the tragic deaths of David Stern and Kobe and Gigi and everyone on that helicopter, which, sent shockwaves through the world, the basketball world and the world in general. We had George Floyd's murder, which led to the widespread protests for social justice and the advocacy of the Black Lives Movement. And now, to top it all off, we're in a worldwide pandemic for the last 4.5 months. With NBA basketball being the first league to shut down, and now, it's the first league to start back up in the bubble in Orlando. So, all that being said, how much time you got? No, just kidding. Can we get started with what's going on with the pandemic? And I know you have some clients down in the bubble. All right, among them, Bismack Biyombo, Josh Jackson, JaVale McGee, Emmanuel Mudiay.
That's correct.
Get that
you
wrong.
got it. Yeah, you got it.
And I'm really enjoying watching JaVale's blog. It's just
he's terrific, and JaVale has done an excellent job with all of his things that he's done in social media. He's he's really very creative that way.
Yeah,
and he's playing great basketball for the Lakers, and the Lakers really feel, as you know, you and I living out here in LA, the Lakers really feel they have an excellent opportunity to win a championship this year. So he's really focused. I think the vlog and the things he's doing, with so much time that they've had, kind of downtime, he keep himself busy, but more importantly, I think he keeps him engaged.
Yeah.
And it's really been well received, and it's been great. I mean, I'm just as interested every week and every time he posts to find out what's going on in the bubble. And it's just so fascinating, and there's a lot of interest there. But more importantly, let's not forget the NBA, what they've done has been nothing short of incredible.
Mm-hmm.
to be able to take on this task, and let alone, be able to pull it off. So we'll see how it turns out. There's a long way to go, but certainly it's been amazing to watch, and the amount of detail and thought and all of the things that went into this process. All the players and executives and people that I've spoken to that are currently down there, they've just really applauded and really commended what the NBA has done and what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you recently had a couple of your clients on your Pushing Through podcast with your co-host Tate Frazier, Moutier and Yambo, and
Yes.
those are terrific episodes, by the way. Besides, getting them on the podcast and looking at their social media, what's your daily routine to stay in touch with your guys down there?
Well, the thing that it's most is really just staying up on the beat of what the NBA is really doing. And what I mean by that is every day is a challenge. I think the NBA, the executives, the teams, and everyone that's part of the NBA is trying to figure out, we don't have all 30 teams that are participating in the bubble. So that means there are 8 teams that are still out, and we have to figure out what those 8 teams are going to do and the clients that are on those teams. Then you have the players who are currently in the bubble,
Mm-hmm.
and not only the players who are down in Orlando, but what we forget about, they have families and things that they have to do. So it's been a massive challenge to not just deal with the basketball part, but life.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, we have this pandemic and so
Exactly.
there's a lot of things that that we're all trying to juggle. It's not like we can get, and see each other face to face. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and it's just a matter of trying to help everyone get as organized as much as they possibly can. So every day poses a new challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what, we're very fortunate here at Wasserman that we have, the resources and the manpower to be able to pull this off. But it certainly has been one of the more challenging things in my
Mm-hmm.
career as an agent, but just in life in general. I mean, it's every day is a new day, and we're just trying to figure it out like everyone else. And but we have people here that are just open to just trying to do the best they can, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, how are you preparing for the draft? I mean, year is like no other year. You can't go visit guys, and there was no postseason, tournament, so no guys weren't showcased. I mean, how has that changed for you?
Well, it's been very difficult, and I think the only word I can say this whole year has been very bizarre, to say the least. And you're absolutely right. We haven't been able to see the players. We haven't been able to get in the gym and do the things that we would normally do. By this time, normally we would be playing summer league or have just concluded summer league before we get the players to their cities and try to get them transitioned so that when training camp begins, and then they'll start playing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a year where, it's everything stopped literally.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've been doing a lot of Zoom calls. I've become an expert at signing in and signing off of Zoom. That's for sure. That's a new skill that I've definitely picked up. We're just trying to help these young people, give them the information, give their families the information, and then we'll see what happens. And but what we do know at this time, there will be a draft in roughly 2.5 months or so, sometime in October.
Mm-hmm.
They'll get drafted and then have to report down there to their prospective teams and kind of go from there. So
Yeah.
I wish I had more information available, but as of right now, today, that's about all we can share.
Mm-hmm.
And these players have to find a way to get ready and condition and find gyms and stay safe and go by the protocols, for their own safety, because the COVID-19 is for real. We want to take this very seriously and be responsible, while we're all trying to figure out what we can and can't do.
Yeah. I mean, it's just such a shame that, they couldn't have their, the Final Four, and they couldn't have a graduation. It's all this stuff that is I guess we took for granted for so long that the world is just upside down, and all you guys, all you agents are in the same boat. So it's not like, somebody else could be, kind of doing something behind the scenes, because you really can't. I mean, you just can't travel. You can't interact.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah. I mean, literally, there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. And the one thing that I will say is that the NBA was very aggressive in trying to figure it out and saying we're going to have to try to at least try. And I give them credit on that. And watching them really take a shot at this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very encouraging to say, it's potentially it's possible. Hopefully, they can finish this, I just call it a tournament. Hopefully they can finish the season and conclude the 1920 season, and so that we can continue to move on and hopefully somehow, some way find a way to get to the 2021 season. So, they just announced the other day that they had no cases, 2 or 3 days ago. So that's very encouraging. And it's been something to watch. And I can't believe yesterday that, the season actually started. You got real games playing. They have real games right now as we're taping here. So it's been a whirlwind. We're lucky, you and I in particular, because the Clippers and the Lakers are really good this year.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
and we're all hoping that at some point in this process that they meet up. I think it would be great for television. It'd be great for the fans here in LA. And, you got LeBron James, Anthony Davis, you have Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, you have this Clipper Laker nation going against one another. You have a lot of backstories. So I think it would make for great theater at this time and something for us to distract us a little bit from our everyday things that we're all facing.
Yeah, I like that you said great theater, because watching the games last night, I couldn't help to think that it was somewhat theatrical. What was going on. I mean, they had the virtual fans. I think the NBA did everything they could do to make it. I can't even say normal, but to make it an atmosphere that the guys would feel comfortable playing in, right? And the play was pretty good. These guys hadn't played in 4.5 months. It looked like they were balling pretty well last night.
Yeah, I mean, in all things considering, I couldn't really tell the difference, in the games, even though, I recognized all of the arenas because I've been to all of the arenas.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought visually on television, the game looked great. I thought they did an excellent job.
Yeah.
And for the amount of time that these players have been off, I thought the play was exceptionally well played.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, when I was like, oh, it's kind of like I was surprised because I didn't know what to expect. These guys have only had about 3 or 4 weeks to practice. But I think overall they look good, especially that Laker Clipper game was very competitive. And the game prior to that, the Utah,
New Orleans,
I thought game was a really competitive game and well played. And, Utah ended up winning the game by a couple or so. So I was very pleased with the outcome of the start of the season yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, watching that Laker Clipper game, it's like almost reminded me of the Bulls and Pistons. I mean, you play that game in a playground, in a schoolyard, at YMCA, doesn't matter. Those guys are going to go at it, and they did, and it's great. It's so great to have that rivalry actually mean something. Although there's no Clipper banners yet on the wall at Staples Center or their new arena, which is coming, but to have both teams relevant and competitive at the same time in my career has never happened. So that's a lot of fun for me to look forward to.
Yeah, it is. And, living out here in LA, you see, you get the everyday, experience of living out here in LA.
Yeah.
And it's, the Lakers are the Lakers. But, there's a huge following of Clipper fans out here. And this is a great team they've assembled. They put together a very competitive group, and make no doubt about it, they have a legit chance, whether you're a Clipper fan or not. This team is to be respected. And of course, any team with LeBron James, what he's been able to do and achieve throughout his career, and with the addition of Anthony Davis, really put them right in the ball game. So, let the games begin, and it's only fitting that they find a way that the game somehow has found its way back onto the court as it should be, and let the players decide it. So I just want to be there to watch it and view it, and and
Yeah, for sure.
say, hey, I was there.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, I was there.
It's so encouraging and heartwarming, and I don't know what the right word is, but I'm proud to be part of an organization like the NBA that put the social justice issues right there front and center, and didn't push it to the side, didn't shy away from it. It was a huge part of the rollout, getting ready for these games, and now the games have started. And Wasserman is at the forefront too. I mean, I just before we came on but recording, I read the
Correct.
Portico article about your boss, Casey Wasserman, who's the chairman of the LA 28 Olympic Committee, asking the IOC to repeal the rule that bars advocacy during the Olympics. I mean, that's a huge thing. And that's a Rule 50, that just states that you can't have any demonstrations or anything, blatant during the Olympic Games. But times have changed, and if you don't mind, you probably read this already, but I want to read one quote by Casey that I highlighted here. He says, "Racism against the Black community has gone on far too long without systemic support and tangible actions from the global sport community. Sport is not separate or clear of racism. It is a microcosm of our world where racism exists." Right? And then he says, with the power of sport, we can start to make the world a better place, a more tolerant place, a safer place, and a more inclusive place. I mean, that's his philosophy overall, I would think, right? I mean, I know Casey and really at the forefront of that. I mean, how do you feel about all of that and working for a guy that really is fighting the fight here?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no, what you're seeing now in this country is something that's been here way before me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suspect that will be here way after me. The systemic racism and the things that we're currently discussing, these are issues that have been here at the forefront for quite some time. And it's very important that we begin to have these discussions, and very important discussions, because it's a human issue. We at some point, doing the right thing will eventually get to where it needs to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully this is another step in that direction of getting to where we need to get to.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone fundamentally understands the issue. Everyone fundamentally understands what we're discussing here. And as we have these discussions, is to bring it to the forefront so that we can look at one another and do the right thing. And
Yeah.
doesn't matter, the differences that we have, whether that's in differences of religion, differences in cultures and what have you. And we have to put those aside and say, this is a place that, we all have this understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So I applaud that. I applaud what Casey is doing and utilizing that platform and doing what he has to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the details of it, but I've just, kind of hearing it really for the first time here. I haven't had a chance to dive into it, but again, I just think this is something that we have to continue, right? We have to continue to have that discussion here.
Mm-hmm.
We have to continue to make sure that we are all informed so that we can have an understanding. Understanding is the solution to every problem. And clearly when people don't understand, you see things and they can go right, left. But when you understand,
Mm-hmm.
You can communicate. If you communicate, you can cooperate. If you can cooperate, you can collaborate. And clearly that's where we're at. We're communicating now. And to me, that is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And, right now we're having a lot of discussion, and this is at the forefront of what we're doing. But the big thing, I think, which is the second step, is that we actually have to put this into action. Your
Mm-hmm.
words, your actions, and your behaviors have to all be lined up.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, yes, there's a lot of discussion, and that's great. But now our words and our actions and our behaviors, I can't say that enough, have to be all aligned up so that as we are trying to get to this place that we're all talking about,
Yeah.
that we can have tangible things that we can see and be principled in how we're going to treat each other moving forward. And so I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a little older. I'm not young and have seen this for the very first time. I've seen this for over 50 years now. So I hear it. I'm the young people and this generation. I love what they've done. I love the energy that they're bringing. But now it's time for us to get organized. It's time for us to do things that now where we can put this into plans so that we can make sure that 40, 50 years from today, we're not still having this same discussion.
Right.
Right. Because that's the one thing that my father and the generation that's older than me, they expressed to me. They was like, here I am 65, 70 years old, and we're still having this same discussion.
Yeah.
And it's important that we tell this next generation, who are in their 20s and they're out on the front line right now, to make sure that when they get to be 50, 60, 70, they're not having this same discussion. That we have an opportunity right now. So let's really take this opportunity, organize ourselves, and take it to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a much bigger discussion, and we, obviously going to keep talking about it. I want to get into. We didn't talk about my podcast the last time of the light bulb that went off in your head that said, "Yeah, I want to become a sports agent." I mean,
right.
and in our research, we really couldn't find that moment in time with you. I know that after you retired, you worked in the Bulls front office for a bit with Jerry Krause, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that must have kind of whet your appetite or something. But what was that? When was that moment, BJ? I always like to find out, like, what was that transformative moment in our guest?
Wow, I wish I could tell you what's going on up here. I ask myself all the time, how did I get here? I never set out to be an agent.
Really?
And even though I'm an agent, I've been doing this for quite some time now. It's closing in over like 15 years. I never set out to be an agent. I didn't know how long this was going to happen, but it just kind of happened. And I can tell you a quick story, share a quick story.
Yeah.
When I went to college, it became very apparent to me that this was a business. So as a young kid, I got recruited in high school, and I got recruited by a number of colleges, and I ended up choosing the University of Iowa. And as I was on campus as a young kid, 18 or so, it became very apparent to me that this was a business. It was very apparent to me that
even in college,
even in the collegiate sports, it was very apparent to me because when I would walk into the arenas, I would see signage with names on it. I would see a scoreboard. I would see an arena. The arenas were much larger than the high school gyms I was playing in. We were all required to wear the same shoes. We were required to wear the same practice jerseys, so forth and so on. So I just became very intrigued. I was just very intrigued on how this business worked, because it was a business, and we were, collegiate athletes, but somehow we were playing games in away arenas on Monday night called Big Monday, right? Which was on television.
Yeah.
And we were playing games that really didn't line up with the student part of what I was doing. And I was just intrigued of how it worked. I didn't think it was good or bad. I didn't particularly have any thoughts about it, but I was just intrigued on how they organized this business called collegiate sports, and which really piqued my interest to professional sports. Okay, now I understand why the commercials happen. And now, so I was just intrigued. And lo and behold, I get drafted. I play in the NCAA tournament. I enjoyed my 4 years in collegiate sports. I thought it was great. And I was lucky enough to get drafted in the NBA. And now just playing in the NBA was great, but seeing it from the inside was even better for me. And I was just that kid. And I was like, oh, wow. So now, we would have games on our local television market. But then we would also have games that were on national television. And the thing that really just pushed me over the top is, I played with this guy named Michael Jordan, who was
I heard of that guy.
way ahead of his time.
Yeah, right.
So I got an opportunity to see basketball
Mhm.
and the business as they were coming together.
Mhm.
And then the thing that really just grabbed my attention even to this day is, when ESPN came into the picture, that was a different platform. And
Mhm.
the platform, for the most part, the platform to get a recap of sports at that time was your local news.
Yeah.
You would get your local news on the sports segment.
Yeah.
If you wanted to know how the Celtics or the Lakers done, you would wait to watch the news, and you would wait to the sports, and you would see that little 5 to 7 minutes where they would go, and maybe they'll give you a highlight.
Yeah.
Well, when Sports Center came around, suddenly I had an hour's worth of highlights of my favorite sports
Yeah.
players, sports teams. We were on Sports Center all the time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, Michael Jordan was really on Sports Center, but hey, I would be passing him the ball.
No, you were there too.
So
Yeah.
I was just, it was like, okay, how does this work? Like, what are they going to do with this? Like,
Mhm.
why are people watching? I was just like,
Yeah.
and by the way, Jordan was getting endorsement deals that weren't part of the NBA, package, right?
Yeah,
Meaning,
right.
like
Mhm.
Gatorade wasn't the official drink of the NBA, but Jordan had to deal with him, how he was doing his business and
Yeah.
how the values of a franchise.
Yeah.
And by the way, the league was expanding and suddenly we were a global game
Mhm.
and they had a dream team. And so I just always have looked
Yeah.
what I was doing, and I had so many questions. And the thing that brought me here as an agent, if I can try to cut the story down a little bit, is
Did a little Phil Jackson full circle right here.
yeah,
Yeah.
if the thing that really brought me here is because I had so many questions,
Mhm.
and I just knew the questions. I wish I could have asked someone when I was playing.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I saw an opportunity to be able to help or at least be available to these young kids as they have questions, because
Mhm.
no one ever prepares you for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Though there's nothing in the world that will prepare you for what you're going to see, other than for you to see it. And then once you probably got it figured out, you're probably too old. You're probably 32, 33 years of old, 33 years of age. And then you're probably on your way out, if
Yeah.
you have a successful, 10, 11, 12-year career.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here. I just thought, you know what, it's time to make yourself available, because I could maybe collapse the timeline instead of me taking 4 or 5 years to learn it and then get it. Maybe if I'm there, I can collapse the timeline and take it from 5-year window to a 2-year window
Mhm.
or what have you.
Mhm.
And I still to this day, I don't think of myself as an agent. I just think of myself as just like sharing my experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Even though things are different today than they were in my generation, some things never change, right? Becoming a professional never changes.
Yeah.
The way the game is played, I never tell the players how to play. I never tell the players what they should do, but certainly having a relationship with your coach,
Mhm.
that's important.
Yeah.
Having
Right.
a relationship with the general manager, that's important.
Yeah.
Having a relationship with your teammates, that's important.
Mhm.
And there are so many other things that that I'm learning, right? I didn't have the internet, I didn't have a podcast, and all those things weren't around when I was playing.
Yeah.
But certainly there are certain things, having a relationship with the media and all of these things and understanding the business that you're in is very, very important. Those things never change.
Mhm.
And I just thought here was an opportunity to be able to make yourself available to this next generation.
Mhm.
And the basketball part, these kids are incredibly gifted. But the other things, I truly just wish I had someone that I could ask these questions to, because I was just literally swimming in the ocean, just kind of bumping around, kind of figuring it out. It all worked out for me, but I also know that it could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
And I was incredibly lucky in that way. And everyone doesn't get an opportunity to win. And it allowed me to have a career, stake out a career, but truly my curiosity is what brought me here. It's what's keeping me here. And every day I'm always learning about something in this business. You know, this bubble thing, I can't get enough of it, because to watch how they're pulling this off, knowing that when we look back on this, this will be an example of the new normal, whatever that normal will be. So sports to me is always, I'm fascinated about how it changes. And I think that's what you started off here with saying, life has changed, change is life. And so I'm just intrigued by how this business continues to grow, how this business continues to have an impact on our lives, and how these young men and women who play sports, it really is a very powerful thing, and the life lessons that you can learn. So I've just kind of learned, and I think it's my appetite to learn has probably kept me here and kept my interest.
Well, we were just treated to this incredible 10-part documentary, which you were part of, obviously the first 3 championships. I was lucky enough to be around, Michael since his rookie year, and all 6 championships. And it was a real behind the scenes, behind the curtain look, and
Right.
at the dynasty, at the organization, at Michael, warts and all, and he's a human being, right? So what was, in a nutshell, just your reaction to the 10-part series and how it was received by the public? Because everybody was just so hungry for sports in any way. And it was great that we had that happen at the beginning of the pandemic. But from you being on the inside with it, I'm wondering what your perspective is.
Well, my initial perspective is that everyone else's life is always more exciting than my own. I never knew my life was this exciting, right? I never knew 30 years, 30 years later, I would still be talking about something that, I was just a young kid trying to figure my way around and learn the city of Chicago, literally. I didn't know anything about Chicago, and to be telling stories that happened at practice. It was just practice, Hey, I didn't think anything about it. You grab breakfast with the teammate. Like, I've done that thousands and thousands of times, right? I didn't know that was anything unique or anything special. But here we are still talking about it. And, the thing that caught my eye, from my point of view, my vantage point was the young people, and in particular my kids, because I have 2, I have 3 kids total, but my 2 older kids, they never saw me play.
Right.
So for them to be able to see a part of my life, really, that's what did it for me. That's what did it for me. Like, and then I began to look at all the other young people as I was, just kind of looking online and listening to the comments. The young people who never got a chance to see Michael play, they were fascinated with this character. And, now it kind of gave them context of like, oh, the shoes really stood for something more than just like a lifestyle shoe.
Right.
Like, actually, he performed. He was pretty good. He put himself, or this documentary put himself in front of a younger audience who never had an opportunity to see him play. So I became fascinated to see the world from a perspective that I had no idea that it had interest in anything that I was a part of 30 years ago. I played, that was it, and I moved on. And all of a sudden now it kind of put the spotlight on, and my kids began to look at me, and my kids' friends, right? They're like, "Oh, Mr. Armstrong," they're like looking at me like, "Oh, now." First I was just, my kid's dad, I'm just Oscar and Olivia and my dad, and all of a sudden now I'm Mr. Armstrong. I was like, so to be able to see the world, so see the world from a young people's perspective who didn't get a chance, because I just take it for granted, like, that just trying to do my job. It was interesting. And I think the fans, who did see Jordan play, this was like kind of one of those moments where our generation and the younger generation actually has something to discuss.
Yeah.
And I just love the argument of like, who is the greatest player? Not that I agree with there is a greatest player or not, but the fact that when the younger generation they should argue for what they've seen. Yeah, we were playing basketball before you were born, you know? It's like I tell my kids, they were like, Dad, you had a life before us, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, I did. I imagine that. So
that's so funny.
it was great. I think it's great for the sport
Mhm,
of basketball. I
mhm,
think it's great for those people who were able to watch and follow the game in that era and
mhm,
kind of relive those moments.
mhm.
And Michael was a once in a lifetime generational talent. Make
Mhm.
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to kind of relive that moment and just kind of watch it. But truly, I was just watching it through the eyes of this generation because it gave them a glimpse of
Mhm.
what it takes and the commitment it takes to be the very best. And you have to admire anyone who tries to be the very best that they can be,
Mhm.
and that's
Yeah.
all you can do, and that's all you can ask of yourself.
Mhm.
And being a parent, that's all you ask, and you just say, hey, if you can be the best you can be, that's all you can ask from yourself. And so it was so many lessons to be learned in there, and see all the guys, Scotty and Horde.
Yeah, it's like watching old home movies or something, right?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about this stuff in so long, and
Yeah.
it was. I forgot a lot of it, and I
Yeah.
guess that's a sign of age. I forgot most of the stories,
Right.
but it was just good to see for
Mm.
people to recognize, that everyone is trying to push the needle forward,
Mhm.
and hopefully you can see what those teams and what Michael and that generation tried to do. We tried to push the game forward,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
that the next generation will have an opportunity to move it forward. And that's why I love these guys that are playing currently. I'm so happy for this generation. They come out, it's a different world, and they play hard. And you see the late Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal's and Tim Duncan's and Allen Iverson's, and now you see LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard. I just love it because these young people, they continue to push the game forward, and prepare it and get it ready for the next wave
Yeah.
that comes. So it's a great responsibility, and love the fact that in the end, you're very lucky. All of us are very lucky to have an opportunity to play professional sports, but more importantly, to play it at that level. So those are great times, and I love the game, and I love the game where it's at now.
Well, BJ, the last thing I want to talk about is something that I didn't know about last time we talked was this legendary dinner that you had with Michael, who invited this other guy named
Right.
Kobe to come to this dinner. And I was reading about it. I saw a couple interviews you did about it. You're quoted as saying they were playing, quote, a virtual game of one-on-one and dissecting each other's game at dinner. I mean, what was that experience like, just be a fly on the wall for that? That must have been
Well,
amazing.
yeah, it was. Without divulging too much, because
Yeah.
out of respect to everyone that was
Sure.
there, and I know Michael, and I spent many years of my life with him and in very competitive environments and spending a lot of time. But I also had a chance to get to know Kobe Bryant as well.
Mhm.
And even though we never played, we shared the same agent, when he first came into the league. So had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him, especially during the off season.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, during that day or that night when Michael said, "Hey, I'm going to dinner and we're going to catch up," I was like, "Oh, great. Okay. You're in town." And when you go to dinner with him, you always know there's going to be people. You got to sneak him in. He's
Yeah.
so I was like, all right, I'll get there. And I always try to get there like 10, 15 minutes earlier, so that way however he's coming in through the back, the front, side, or whatever,
Yeah.
and like someone else was going to meet us there. I was like, oh, okay. I didn't even think to ask who's coming, and lo and behold, you know, Mr. Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, shows up.
Mm.
And it was great. And it was one of those moments that was great because you saw the respect that they both have for one another, but they couldn't help but turn on the competitive spirit. And they just had this
Yeah.
virtual dialogue, if you will. And
Yeah.
I didn't say a word. I just sat there and I just watched where um, they were just saying how the game would be played if they caught the ball here. I just remember it. Well, if I catch the ball in the left wing with a live dribble, how would you defend me? And the detail that they were going over these abstract ideas, that's what really caught my attention was, okay, well, how are you going to catch the ball? Like who asks those questions? What's your pivot foot? What's the score of the game? And then they just did this in all these different places. How would you defend me if I had it here? What would you do if I was? And I just remember thinking, I just had the pleasure of watching like they're geniuses. And the fact that they didn't have to actually play a game, that they could actually just play it in their mind, to me was way more impressive than actually watching them play, because clearly, you would want to see them at their peak, but they were able to mentally play this game. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And I remember the conclusion of all of this. I mean, this went on for quite some time, was that they both concluded that they only agreed on one thing, that Michael Jordan had bigger hands than him. And that was the deciding factor. Well, he didn't.
Yeah.
The one thing about both of them, they never acknowledge a loss. He just admitted that Michael Jordan had bigger hands. And that's the one thing I don't want to disclose how it concluded. But
great.
Michael having the bigger hands, that was a big thing that they both agreed upon. But it was great. It was a mutual respect, and it was one of those things that I'll always remember. And it had so many great times, and I just I miss him so much. Right? And not only me, but I think about his family and what he's done for the sport, for the game, for the city of Los Angeles, for the world, for that matter. And it was a tragic day, and it's one of those days that I will always remember, because I will remember exactly where I was at and what I was doing when I did hear the news. But he'll always have a special place, his family. And I remember meeting him for the first time when he was 18. And I'll always remember that smile and him and his family, and how happy he was. And to watch him throughout his career, I think he played about 20 years or so. It was just an amazing run that he had. And I'm just happy to have shared the moments that I was able to share in his life, and what he meant to, so many people. And you could see the respect and, what he's done for so many people, in all, phases of life. And he was just beginning to start his next chapter. And it was, but that was a great moment. That was a great dinner. And I remember they both, after we got done talking, then we had to figure out how to get out of there, right? The bird had got out, and then one decided to leave one direction, the other left in the other. And somehow, some way they got out of that restaurant, because it seemed like 1,000 people were outside waiting to just get a glimpse of those two.
So if they're going and they're trying to get out one way or the other, do you get stuck with the check? Is that how it worked? I hope not.
Yeah, I did get to check that night. You would think both of those guys, right? They've, one owns the team, the other is, he's, but no, it was at that point we're just, three guys sitting there, and really it was just, I was just listening. I wasn't saying a word.
What an amazing experience to have in life. BJ, the last thing I want to ask you is for the young guys today, the guys that you work with every single day, who didn't get a chance to play with Kobe, but they might have seen him play, as kids and teenagers. What's the legacy that he's leaving behind this next generation, or the current generation, but also the next generation of young players?
Well, there's so many lessons, right? You can point to so many things, and clearly you can point to his perseverance. You can point to the fact that, that here was a young man who came into this business at 18, and he was able to kind of learn on the job, literally, how to play. But I think the one thing that I'll always remember about him is, you play this game for a lot of different reasons. And, some people play the game, because they love the sport, or maybe they play the game because they're just good at it. Maybe they play the game because they're tall. Maybe they play the game because they understand defense, or they may be a great offensive player. But the one thing about, Kobe that I always understood about him is that he played the game for, really one thing. He had a love for the game. Clearly you saw that, but respect. He respected the game. I think it was Michael who said in the documentary, he respected the game and he never wanted to cheat the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you watch Kobe's preparation, and when you watch how he played, when you watched how he, took every game with, he was always present in the moment. He was always present. That's the one thing about him that I always, from the very first time he was present. He wasn't like drifting. He wasn't like his mind was somewhere else. He was like right there. And if you were saying something to him, he was looking right at you.
Mm-hmm.
He had this respect for the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you can love the game, but he respected the game, and he held that game in a place that, he wanted to make sure that you knew he respected it, and he wanted to make sure that you respected the game as well. And that's what I respect about him. And I always valued that because I saw another person hold the game in that same special place. It becomes it's sacred almost, right? And you just hold it. It's like in a place where, yeah, I may be great at scoring. I may be great at winning. I may be great at, but that wasn't why they were playing. They played it because they respected it.
Mm. Yeah, that's very well said. And
I can't give you any higher from my perspective of a compliment to say, I've seen a few players in my lifetime who respect the game, not just love the game, but respect it. And when you respect something, then all of the other things that come with it, money, fame, celebrity, endorsements, that's nice. But to those guys, they would do anything for that game of basketball. And they held it in such high regard that it was just more than all the other things that came with it. So if there's anything, try to find something that you respect and that you value to that degree. And, I think that's probably something that we all would like to find in life. And I'm very fortunate that I've seen some people do that. And it's very special if you have an opportunity to see something, but more importantly, to carry that out day after day after day in your own life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That was really eloquent. And I will totally agree with you on that, because that was what I saw the most in him, was that respect for the game, never mailing it in, always bringing it every, like you said, even just in a personal conversation, and having an interest in the person that's in front of you. So, so great catching up with you, man. I can't thank you enough for taking the time. I know you got Zoom calls up the wazoo, and you left and right, and I don't know how you even fit a podcast in, but I'm gonna kind of push your podcast here, pushing through.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna keep listening to it, and it's really fun. It's a great listen, so I hope people can tune in.
Oh, appreciate it. And anytime, we got to get you on the show. And hey, you do a great job here, my friend. And thank you. You got a great platform, a great podcast. And you're one of the best. And you and I have known each other for a long time. And
yeah, we have.
You've been one of my friends for a long time. So thank you again for having me on, and stay safe, my friend.
You too, BJ. Thanks, man. And stay well. And I'll see you somewhere in the bubble. You'll see me in the background.
All right.
Take care, man.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for continuing to download and subscribe to our podcast. A reminder that you can find us on the LA Times app and online, and as well as on your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Please keep following us on Instagram at Legends of Sport, Twitter at Legends_of_Sport. Our blog is legendsofsport.blog. And don't forget our TikTok and YouTube channels, Legends of Sport. You can find my photography on Instagram at ADB Photo Inc. One more announcement, folks. Art Fun Parties is hosting a contest to enter to win a virtual photo shoot experience with me. Details can be found at artfunparties.com. Time is running out, so please go to artfunparties.com as soon as you can. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in, downloading, and doing everything that you do to keep this podcast going. We love you guys out there. We'll be back next week with another episode in our Restarting the Clock series. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and wear your mask.